Speaker for today is Mr. Joseph White from the Department of Philosophy at the Central European University. And the topic of our presentation is a very exciting and controversial one, which already resonated in day one of our conference. Title is, Hey Siri, what should I target? AI-powered Nero enhancement in the military and the question of legal and moral responsibility. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Hello. Okay. Well, hello everyone. My name is Joseph White, and my research, as was just said, is titled "Hey Siri, what should I target? AI-powered cognitive enhancement in the military and the questions of legal and moral responsibility." So my sort of goals for the presentation are twofold. One, I want to show how the use of some types of brain-machine interfaces can lead to complications in legal and moral responsibility and how they can damage a soldier's moral integrity. And then the second part is perhaps encouraging us to direct certain research away from this type of neuro enhancement and maybe towards other ones that don't provide such opportunity for moral and legal problems. And right now is the time to do it because many militaries around the world are expressing more and more interest in developing these types of technologies to increase military effectiveness. And to help do this, I have a sort of thought experiment that I created for a technology that it hasn't quite arrived yet, but we can see how it's building and it might arrive there at some point. So first, a military pilot has been outfitted with a new experimental AI-powered brain-machine interface. This BMI limits certain signals from reaching the brain so as to artificially compartmentalize the world. And this is something that's very important for a lot of militaries with pilots, because a lot of the time that they spend training is learning how to compartmentalize, which is to take all the information that they're getting and shunt away all the information that they don't need so they can focus purely on the information at hand that is relevant to the mission. And if they develop such a brain-machine interface using AI, the AI will be able to take this information as it's coming to them from their senses and do away with them. So the pilot only has the information that's necessary to affect the mission. And the pilot has been given this BMI, he goes on the mission, and it's a success. Not just a success, a rousing success. Their safety was better than in normal parameters. The efficiency of the bombing goes off perfectly. But when they return home, instead of, a pat on the back, they're met with handcuffs. Because due to this artificial data landscape that the AI constructed for them by giving them only the information necessary, they accidentally struck a civilian target instead of the enemy base. So the question becomes, what do we do now? Well, first off, I'd like to take a look at some of the legal complications. In that the soldier in question only committed such an act because of the data landscape that was being constructed by the AI, and thus they were able to act within. And I argue that these soldiers actually failed to meet the mens rea requirement, which is the guilty mind, due to this. And to help defend this, I will be using an application of the McNaughton insanity defense, which is often used, especially in the United Kingdom, for cases such as schizophrenia and other, mental disabilities. So this defense has two main requirements. And they do this because it focuses on the cognitive abilities of the person rather than the conduct that they were able to control. The two requirements, first, is that the individual must be suffering from a defect of reason or a disease of the mind at the time that the act was committed. And the second one is that the individual, due to this defect of reason or disease of the mind, was unable to know the nature and the quality of the criminal act that they committed, or that the act itself was wrong. And I look at it, this definition, and I would like to point how the soldier in this scenario, when they dropped the bombs, because of how the AI was providing them the information about the world around them, they acted perfectly rationally in their own world. They believed it was the enemy that they were hitting, and they did not know it was civilians. And the AI in this case is acting as a sort of physical defect of reason or disease of the mind at the time. And then I'd like to move on to sort of the moral implications that are coming from this. Because all AI systems are developed, well, they develop themselves from both their programmers and the information that they've been given. And these programmers of the AI will input some value judgments into it, just unconsciously or purposely. And this will lead to the AI valuing different things, in different ways. And I say, even if they manage to keep themselves completely separated from the value judgments, the military is still going to have certain values put into the AI because of mission parameters and trying to complete the work. Now, the biggest conflict comes when, let's say, this individual soldier with the AI and the brain machine interface has different values and moral codes than the ones that the AI has been programmed with. And this conflict can cause great psychological harm, but also harm to their moral integrity. Because when the soldier sees the actions that they have committed due to the AI feeding them this information and how it constructed the world, they may choose to divorce themselves from their own actions and the responsibility they have through them. And this denial of their responsibility for what they've done leads to problems with moral agency, as they now look towards the AI as being the thing that has directed them to do this, and they stop trying to resist it as something that they should not take part in. Because in the past, when there were orders that were given that would lead to war crimes, such as the bombing of civilian targets, soldiers often pointed to their commanders or the people higher above them in the hierarchy and said, this is their fault. And nowadays, that is why there's so many militaries with the ability to disobey what a person may believe to be an illegal order. But this isn't a chance that many people with this type of implant will get, for the orders are coming through, the orders and the information they're getting about the act is coming through something in their own head. So as a part of Jessica Wolfendale's call for caution for certain enhancements in the military, I join in because of the negative effects this can have on a soldier's moral integrity and how they're able to view their own actions and such. And now we have to think about the steps going forward. Well, for this, I believe that we should try to avoid the use of AI-empowered brain-machine interfaces that undermine the moral responsibility of soldiers in a military context, and that we should focus our efforts on other forms of neuro enhancement that do not cause so many moral and legal problems. Because right now is the time to be having this conversation. It may seem sci-fi at the moment, but it might not be for long. Because if we wait to try to dissuade militaries from developing this technology or making use of it until after they've gotten their hands on it and have learned how effective it is at increasing mission success and military might, well, then it just might be too late. Thank you all for listening to my talk.
We have time for one question.
Hi, Joseph. Really fantastic talk.
Hello.
I have a question about tensions perhaps between the argued benefits of a neuro enhancement, maybe not related to mission success, but to soldier welfare. So for example, maybe this is happening, or maybe these are conversations around this, but using beta blockers after a soldier has been involved in a high, emotional stakes or perhaps a violent encounter. And this can help protect against the induction of PTSD. But then on the other side, some folks may argue that perhaps they would then be sort of emotionally divorced from that experience and perhaps may be less resistant to engaging in more violence or just sort of be more desensitized to violence. And so how do we think, I guess, about that tension between trying to protect against mood disorders that can result from being in those really terrible situations versus sort of maybe the feeling of being desensitized to the humanity that perhaps we do want soldiers to retain?
So this is actually a topic I've done some research in already, and currently my thoughts lean more towards that we shouldn't, enhance the emotional toll that such things can have on the soldiers, but we also shouldn't try to dampen it. While it is important to try to avoid such mood disorders, there might be other ways of going about it, and especially for soldiers, when we want an ethical army and such, we don't want them to be completely disconnected from their actions, because that is also a grave threat to moral integrity and may lead to people following, orders that would lead to war crimes.
Okay, I don't see, very flash, yes.
Thank you. I suppose the immediate counter argument that you would face talking to the military about this would be something in the lines of, well, the moral integrity of the pilot weighs fairly light if we can reduce civilian casualties because we're using this technology. So what would your reply be to such a sort of utilitarian argument, assuming that the technology works well most of the cases?
That's one of the hardest questions, because once, we've seen it in the past with military technologies, once they have been developed and military sees its use, it's very hard for them to give it up, which is why, I emphasize so much on having our talks now before the technology has been developed so that we can steer, research away from such things, because I'm not sure an argument that would work very well. It would depend on the general I'm talking to, trying to convince them and their own moral code.
Thank you very much. Please join me again in thanking Joseph White. Our next speaker for this session is Luisa de Paula Araújo Galvão Cunha from the University of Barcelona.